You have begged us to come on this programme for a long time, in fairness. And we haven't let you on. But now you've brought donuts, and there's exciting news from Canada.
There is. Hopefully next year.
But I think it should be contextualised.
Okay.
The sport now needs direction as to what it's going to be, what it's going to look like, where it might be played, where investment's going to come from, and it has to change. And I think that's not us saying that, even though clearly we have been saying that for 5 years. Adam Pearson's saying that, Gary Hetherington's saying that. People who are involved that can make these decisions are now saying we need to make some decisions. So now is a really good time to have representatives of a growing market, how will that work, and the women's game, which I think, again, a lot of people at the moment are looking at the influence that the 100 cricketers had in bringing in a new audience. It was given an absolute lambasting when it was proposed.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to work, it wasn't going to appeal to traditional cricket fans, but actually it has brought in a lot more women and children. It's put the women's and the men's game on an equal parity.
Totally.
And you look at the crowds that they've got.
17,000 the last,
And the teams that they've manufactured to give it a different feel. And it's sort of worked. It's probably too early to judge it, but what we have in this room is a representative of what Rugby League could look like going ahead.
And I think that obviously the Canada competition that we're trying to develop is a nines, which is the alternative to the traditional. And it's not to go against the norm or what people are used to, but I think it can be a good accompaniment to it. I think it'll be a good partner to it. And if you're someone like me who was new to the sport, it's a big ask to try to get people involved as much as you need to be involved, either as an athlete into an 80-minute game, or even as a fan when, you know, if you've got friends who are rugby, you know rugby, it's easy to get involved. So we believe that obviously the nines, just like with the cricket, if you do a shorter version of the sport, you know, rugby league is huge. It's a big sport, but if you just have a slightly different version of it that is easy to grasp, it's easy to get people involved because a 15-minute game is easy to get people involved in.
Make it an 18-minute game.
Do you know what I mean?
2 halves of 9.
Yeah. I'm just speaking out loud.
I'm just throwing that in there.
But it's
have that idea for free.
It's about just trying to bring new people into the game.
I think first of all you should explain the concept that it's cooperative, because I think again there's 2 things that spring to mind. One is clearly it's going to be for both sexes equally, which is part of why you're getting involved. You should explain not just the as a superstar player, superstar player.
That's not even true.
But you're also going to help out in the formulation of what the sport should look like. But you've added in this element of development time, which is a very, very unfamiliar rugby league concept, and a strategy as well, that you didn't say we're going to do it tomorrow, it's going to sing and dance from the minute we do it. It's like we're going to put down some foundations, we're going to build towards something, we're going to get some people involved who are actually going to be given some time to bring their perspective and ability, expertise in.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing that some won't know who watch this terrible program is the idea behind it being a cooperative. Yeah.
So the initial idea came around 7 years ago when it was asked, you know, if you could start rugby league from scratch, what would you do? You know, if you literally could just swipe the tile and then just start. And
you booked the George Hotel.
And in those 7 years, there was research on different business models that are out there, and looking at the different business models and how they reacted to big situations like COVID or, you know, credit crunch or whatever. And the one model that kept on coming up above is a co-op model, because it's not reliant on 1 or 2 individuals to support that, because the members are part of the organization. They have an active role in it. And so when we decided that's the model that we're going to go, we looked at, has this been done in any other sport? So if you look at the Green Bay Packers, a lot of people don't know that they're actually a not-for-profit organization. They are a co-op, and yet look how successful they are. Look at the German teams, you know, if you're in the Premiership, they're owned by 51% by fans. And those clubs are the ones who are more sustainable. Obviously, Barcelona, they also are a co-op, but because of the leadership and the disregard to the co-op rules that are in place, like consultation with the members, etc., they have now put themselves, and that's why they're no longer president, and they've got a new director board. So there's a lot of ownership in terms of who is running the club. Now, the board that we have in place, we are solely custodians of this. You know, just like with any sport, whether you're a Man United fan, Leeds United, whatever, the owners of the clubs are custodians. The clubs were there way before, you know, they came along. So there has to be a respect element with the fans and bring them along the journey so that they can really feel that they're part of it. Because if you look at what they're going to do in Super League, the rules of, oh, we're going to have this new competition in Europe, the fans didn't know. I'm like, how much can you disregard the people who are making you the money, the people who are bringing into the fans, you know, new generations? These people are what sport's about. And so by having a co-op model, it's enabling us to ensure that that always stays in the heart of what we do.
So a co-op model is basically you're looking for investors within the public.
So it's
to
two.
part own.
Yeah. So yeah. So
or own a significant percentage.
That's correct.
These aren't clubs. This is a competition, and that's the difference.
Yeah. So
where you talk about Barcelona and the Bundesliga clubs, you're actually asking people to invest in a competition.
Yeah. So it's the whole league. So every club, so every city that we announce, they are owned by the league.
So that's more along the MSL line in America, that the clubs actually are part of the organisation, but the organisation owns part of each of the clubs.
No, but the league will own, the CCCRL own the whole aspect of all the clubs. Yeah. So when it comes
it's taking that to the next level.
Yeah, so when it comes to the administration, the running of it, it's going to be central. So we don't have 10 HR people, we don't have 10 ticket offices, it's all going to be central. And therefore, we can ensure that how we deliver to fans in Vancouver or in Montreal is going to be exactly the same. It's going to be very consistent, and it needs to be that. Because like when I bought tickets to games here, even in the championship level, like why are some of the clubs having to have their own set of, you know, HR or ticket office when actually why not get together and have a central point where everyone can kind of save money that way as well, you know, and it makes it more streamlined as well. So.
But this isn't something that you set up to start tomorrow,
which
all
thank God no.
Which all Rugby League has been on the basis of I've had an idea and you can now buy a shirt.
Yeah.
It's more to do with the fact that COVID or otherwise, you didn't intend to put players on pitches within 10 minutes of announcing this idea.
No, it can't be that, because I mean I'm new to the sport, so in the short space of time that I've followed the sport, there's been a lot of fans being let down. There's been a lot of disappointment from players and other organizations. And for me and the people on the board, we want to make sure that we think things through. You know, we don't want to announce a date. We don't want to announce anything until we know that everything's in place, because we have to be transparent. By being a co-op, it's about transparency. So if someone asks us anything during the AGM, we can demonstrate what planning you know, if we, for example, did our trials for our players and it cost us $100,000, we have to be transparent in why did it cost that much if people did question that. So it is about making sure that we plan things thoroughly, that we've got the right legal advice that possible, you know, that we're following government rules of what's going on at the moment, because they change their minds left, right and center. So yes, I know people want to know a lot, but we really want to be taking our time to make sure we know it's going to play next year. That's what we know.
Which is incredibly un-Rugby League like. Mm. So in terms of what you've announced so far,
yeah,
conferences in East and West,
yeah,
which is their first announcement of cities that are going to have teams.
Correct.
And a dual competition, men's and women's.
Correct.
Which is where
the
women's advisory group comes in.
Yeah.
So the next thing is, why did you see it as an opportunity to get involved at ground floor level that excited you? Because you're experienced in the playing side of things. How exciting is it to open up a new market or be involved at the ground floor level of that?
Well, that's exactly it. Isn't like I speak to you often, or we speak about things in the grassroots level. For me, I'm a teacher, you know, I like the development of it. But it wasn't so much it wasn't so much that, like the idea of it, the nines, the competition itself in general. When Sandy spoke to me about it, it wasn't about this competition, how great it's going to be. It's about, firstly, how can we bring the women's game on, but how can we deal with all the misconceptions? How can we deal with all the troubles, the issues, the problems? Initially, and I was like, that's the first time somebody said, hey, we want this competition to be as equal as it possibly can be. Look, we're not with the men yet, nor we're closing that gap, and this certainly does close the gap. And I'm not saying that we will ever be equal, but this is the first time I've ever felt that there's going to be a board where it might be a case where we sit next to the men, or there's an idea, and God forbid, that they're going to take the idea from both sides rather than one. And it's having this central kind of organisation. It means that, how many times did Rich and I speak in 2019 about where do we come? Are we community? Are we elite? Are we Super League? Are we...
Well, you're elite.
Now, we'll come back to that. But it was like the disciplinary stuff, wasn't it? We were like, well, where do we lie? Does it go to a board? And things, small things that you don't think about. Level of facilities or training or,
Well, even on game day, having your own dressing room, for example.
Oh, we would, yeah.
And who would think that wouldn't be a prerequisite?
Crazy, eh? Crazy. Who needs a dressing room?
But
it's like officials, isn't it? Like touch judges, or what do the women need? And it's not for me just about developing the game. I think that part of it is fantastic, and I'm more about developing the sport. In Canada, it's an emerging sport, so to me, it's brand new. I can go over, and I could say anything, and if somebody's keen to play this game, they're going to listen. And I think that's such a lovely thing as well, because I want to grow the sport in the UK. I want to grow the sport in Canada. I want to grow the sport in Europe. I'm a Rugby League geek and I'm proud of it.
But you've played the Canadian Ravens in a World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
You've played against teams like PNG Orchids. You've seen the potential for the women's sport. What it doesn't really have is a plan.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
you almost can take up the game in, let's say, America at the moment and be playing for America.
Yeah.
And actually you need that middle area that develops players over a period of time.
Because our view was that, like I said, whether you're a backer or you're a member and you're being part of the process, is we are custodians of the financial support that you're giving us. So we want to make sure that whatever we're putting the money into has a plan, has a strategy, so that if something doesn't work, we can go back into it and decide, actually, this didn't work for the Western Conference, it works for... And look at that. And that's why, having the women's committee, it's about speaking to people who currently play and getting the expert people in countries where it's already being played and try to get lessons learned so that we can come up with a strategy, a plan to how to engage women, young girls, teenagers into the sport.
As fans as much as players.
Yes,
well.
Exactly, yeah. And there is a decrease in women in Canada getting into team sport already, so...
I mean, it's such an accessible sport as well, nines. That's something you and I both like the concept anyway, don't we? But it's a
Do you think you need to have a different offer for a younger audience?
It's a quick, easy... No, it's not easy. I'm going to retract that statement straight away. It's a quick and exciting game. Yeah. It's fast. You've got to be skillful. You've got to be tactical. And it's not, we need 13, 17, 25 players. We need 12 maybe. The whole idea of getting teams, you're not putting pressure on to find lots of people. It's not taken away from the 13s, because all that's going to do is enhance the 13s. Yeah. Because, I'm involved in a nines competition in Canada. However, I'm not a nines player because I am a prop forward, and therefore, as much as I'd love to be a part of a nines, I wouldn't be picked over the backs that would be playing, because it's a faster game.
I think the thing about nines that works we like everything Rugby League, we dip our toe in it, we think, oh, that's a good idea, and then we do something completely different. But the thing that worked about nines was you do still have specific positions, because the rules dictate you've got to have some people that clearly are forwards. It's not like Rugby Union sevens where everyone has to be a back.
I can't even follow that anyway.
It's that nines, the laws and the elements of nines combine everything that is the 13s game. Yeah. So there is a place for prop forwards in it.
Danny Anderson style prop forwards, yeah.
How is the recovery?
But if you look at cricket, I would never ever, you'll ever find me in a cricket game, because I don't understand.
Why not? What's wrong
because
with
after
there
5
for all day and nothing happens?
Because after
It's
5
great.
days, you can. It's
But
like no one wins.
But that's only one version of cricket.
I know, but that's the one that I was first made aware of.
I mean, I was hoping that the England-India series ended 0-0 with them all being draws. So that would be the perfect riposte to the 100.
Yeah, so I am a baseball fan, and people hate me for that, thinking, oh, baseball's boring. But for cricket, I just find it's not engaging enough for me as a sports fan.
But the 100 has been.
But the 100, I'll be going to it. The kids loved it because it was faster and they were so engaging with the fans. The commentator was explaining the rules and there was things happening.
But I clearly think you have to have both versions.
Yeah, oh, totally. You cannot have one without the other because...
So is the plan at some stage to go from 9s to supplement 13s, or is the CCCRL,
the triple CRL,
CCCRL going to only be 9s forevermore?
The plan is for 9s because I think that's what we have to focus on because the fan bases are different. You know, we want to focus on the new generation.
It's a brand new strategy and a brand new thing as well. So.
You know, and the thing is, if people who are currently playing 9s for us, for example, want to get into 13s, we will engage with the provincial game. So we have been, since day one, liaising and speaking to the provincial boards and the CRLA about what we were wanting to do so that it makes sure that if there is any player who wants to play 9s, it doesn't clash with the calendar or the schedule. So we have been working with them since day one to ensure that we are working together. You know, 10% of the profits that we make go back to them.
I think
it has to be.
Other two exciting things that, just by even chatting about it, one is clearly the Olympics are going to be in Brisbane in 2032, and there's already been representation saying the host city can ask for certain exhibition events, and the two that they're looking at the moment is Rugby League 9s, because virtually enough countries particularly throughout the Commonwealth area, play Rugby League and wheelchair, which again another variant that we find incredibly exciting. So you're actually building in towards something. But I think the other thing that you could be the start of, without again wishing to place goals that you haven't set yourselves, is that this could be the beginning of a 9s tour in every nation that plays Rugby League. So you would need a 9s tournament here in England, you'd need a 9s tournament in Australia, you'd need your tournament in Canada, and at some point it becomes a global tour.
Yeah. And the thing is with the co-op model is that, so my specific role within the league is about developing of the framework. And so co-ops, if you're a co-op, the whole thing is you help other people. It's about helping other people. So if there was a nation who wanted to, say, Argentina, I'm just making one up, who said,
no, they
look,
do exist.
well, but you know what I mean, like,
I'm sure you can buy the shirts and see them.
I mean, you know, they might say, do you know, we want to have a 9s, can you help us? We would give them our framework and help them establish a co-op model within Argentina based on what we've done, so that it's about helping them.
You wouldn't hold it as your intellectual property and not share it.
No, because that's part of the whole co-op
Those
thing.
who saw the Robert Bergen issue will now know.
Yeah,
but isn't that the exciting part of it? Like, you've got a concept here which is a new tournament. It's still taking what we know and love. It's a new tournament, and as much as I love Rugby League and I play it and I adore it, but it's going to take somebody else to take the reins and test it, for everyone else to go, oh, actually, it just does work. Because nobody wants to dip the toe in at the minute, and this is what this competition is doing. They're not dipping the toe in, though. They're jumping two-footed after very careful considerations about everything else. Like, having spoken to Sandy and other people, like, I am confident with my involvement that I see something that has longevity, but has the research and the backing, and it's secure, and the consistency across the men's and the women's, and it's a very, very exciting concept that when it is successful, because I truly believe it's going to be successful, there will be nations that are going, actually, can we borrow that model? Can we see that it does work?
There might be television companies who are getting a bit tired of what they're being offered at the moment. So, well, if you can add in that 9s element, you've got something.
It's quicker and more fun to watch for the fan base, isn't it?
But if you look at cricket, but also lacrosse, so lacrosse recently changed into a quicker version. So they now have a quicker version as well, because they realised that the new generation, they view sports so differently. They don't watch the full. If you look at the NBA, they've had less. Even in the final last year, when there was absolutely no sport happening, they had less viewers than ever before. And it's because people don't watch sport the same way. there's so much passion behind the people that are working with me. It's not just me. Obviously, people are hearing a lot from me, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes, and
I can second that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we really want this to work as a team. You know, the fans, the backers, everybody. It really is a joint venture. This, you know, it's not just about whoever is behind the table and the paperwork. It really is a joint effort, and sometimes there are days when I'm doing like 18-hour days because obviously we've got the time difference, we've got my own job, but the adrenaline and the excitement of when I speak to people about what we're doing and they see the detail that I've presented, their reaction is what gets me going. Because, you know, it's going to be hard, it's not going to be easy because we're starting literally from nothing in a way, but you need that adrenaline to kind of keep you going and not to feel demotivated. And every time, like I said, I present the whole vision, that reaction is what gets the whole board, because it is long hours that we're trying to accommodate the Toronto time or Vancouver time. And but yeah, so and UK time, yeah. And so, you know, it's, yeah, we are excited, but we want to walk before we can run and just take our time to go through everything in detail.
I think what you're doing, not to put too fine a point on it or even grandiose it before you've had the chance of road testing it, the blank sheet of paper moment is where the sport has arrived at. So if you can get this right, I think you are providing a template.
We're trying, you know, we are trying.
And that's the thing for anybody listening who's going, it won't work in a foreign country. It actually will.
All I can say is
work back over here.
We are trying, and you know, we're not going to get it right the first attempt. We will learn from it, but it's to say, look, if it doesn't work, you know, at least people can use it as a platform to study why and then try something else. But if no one tries anything, how can the sport develop if we don't try something? But when you're trying it, try it with research, try it with calm, you know, don't rush things, because if you rush, like even in our day-to-day, if we rush decisions on where we want to go on holiday and not think things through, then we do bad decisions. And when you are the custodian of people's money, whether it's the backer or the members, that's a lot of responsibility. So we want to make sure that whatever we are doing, we can show that homework has been done. And that's why we aren't announcing a lot of things at the moment, because until we know that everything is ironed out, legal side, this and that, whatever, then that's when we announce, because at least we know that there's nothing else, there's no other issues to address.
How very unrugby.
Oh no, as the great Wayne Gretzky said, another Canadian, you don't score with 100% of the shots you don't take, or something. He said something like, because he used to say it in business.
You like hockey stuff, don't you?
I do like hockey. I would have worn a hockey shirt, but it's too bloody warm. I'm not just sweating because it's warm, it's because these donuts are like a racehorse.
I did make the special delivery, and clearly I'm the only one that even tried to eat them.
It's hard to try and get.
I'm an athlete.
She's an athlete. I mean, I'm going to press end stream in a second, and we'll see. You'll all believe it because you won't know.
I'll take a picture of him eating.
Don't do that.
What happens here stays here.
It does. It's all content. Thank you, Sandy.
Well, thank
You're
you.
welcome back at some point, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you so much to both of you to kind of give us the platform just to talk about kind of what we're doing. And, you know, we are just trying, and you know, anyone who is willing to listen to us,
we will give you that platform.
Yeah.
We only ask for every exclusive, that's all.
And for this amazing girl here who's trying to help us do something different.
Yeah,
and,
can't wait to begin.
you know, it's using the player experience that I feel is gold dust, and using, you know, the battles, the good and the bad, to try something, to develop something from a grassroots level.
More power to you.